Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Today I've got relatives coming over, so as opposed to taking the time to get myself in the video, I think the information is what really matters. And the biggest question I've been constantly having is how you research all the items that we do sell, or that you run across. I just picked up some black glass, so I figured I'd throw this out there. Black glass, for those of you who aren't into old bottles, dates back to the 1500s. And they're items that would have been used, religiously every day of the week by most normal people. Most bottles are made out of black glass between, it's like 1880 and before. It's not really black glass, but when you're looking at it without light shining through it, it looks black. And but when you hold it up to the light, it's actually green. But the green's so dark that when the light's removed from viewing it, it looks black. So that's why it's called black glass. I've got tons of black glass. I love the olive skin bottles. Just a little brief history on it, but the older the better, obviously. But to look up something like this, you're literally going to just look for bottle black glass. That's literally what I'm typing in for this. Now, whatever you have, obviously, just do the basics on what the item is. If it's a postcard from New York, start with postcard New York. If it's New York City or something like that. Or if it's from Detroit, postcard Detroit. And then you center it in on one more keyword as you go along. So that's literally how you do anything. On just the basics on looking up something like this black glass bottle, I look it up two ways. I always look it up first, whatever, if it's an oddball item, it's something I really don't know as much, or that changes and has a volatile price, which is something like this. These are old items. Sometimes they go for thousands, sometimes they don't. Really depends on who's around at that time when the auction's going on, because these are rare items. There's only 800 max of these up that have completed right now. And the second thing I do is, once I determine how many are up or have actually completed, I'll open up another window and I'll look at how many actually sold to give me an idea of the sell-through rate for that category. And this one's not too bad. It's actually just a hair over 50%. This one here is the actual just completed. It includes ones that didn't sell. And then this one here is the just the ones that sold. Now this one's obvious. Any of these old onion skin bottles with like a seal like this on it, you're going to get a ton of money for them. And once in a while, I do run into, once or twice a year, I'll run into a glass black bottle that's worth, $800 to $1,000. That does happen, because a lot of people don't know that these things are that old. So, but anyway, back to the search aspect of this. So you've got something that sells more than 50%. We will discount these. We could sort this out too, but some of the items you look for, and this is part of the reason I'm showing it this way, could be in two different categories. Now, collectibles is different than most other things. If it's clothing and it's jeans, it's going to be in a jeans category. But if it's bottles or any type of paper or any type of things, there are possible second categories they can be listed in. Like the black glass bottle is a perfect example. There's actually glass bottles, and primitives is what they call them, in the antiques section. So you've got two separate sections. Let's say there was 10,000 black glass bottles on here. You would have a hard time trying to determine anything. You'd want to kind of narrow it down. And this could help you a little bit, but it could confuse you even more, because there's two categories. Now, we won't, on this example here, even look at the health and beauty, because those are going to be new items. So I'm not even going to worry about that. Okay, so part of the way to narrow this down is to first determine, what category is going to be the best category to look in when you've got something that could be showing up in different categories. So what I'll do is I'll look at a sold page and I'll just separate them. I'll open up one for collectibles that's sold and one for antiques that's sold. And this kind of gives me a quick idea. And I bet you $1 million, most of them are probably going to be in one or the other. Or somebody could have even double listed some of these. Now you can see that these are all obviously sold, so we have no real good picture yet on what's going on. But you can see that only 31 went in antiques, and 294 with the highest dollar ones are in collectibles. So that's where I'm going to look for them, and that's where I'm going to list them at. These are probably people who didn't do a ton of research and just threw them up in the first category they thought they would sell in. And again, this necessarily isn't the best category to put them in, even if this is probably the most logical. I think outside the box when I'm doing research as well as when I'm listing the item. So for here, you can see that obviously collectibles is the section we want to compare it to. So we're going to close off the antiques, and we're going to just center in on collectibles. And we can do it this way too. We'll just hit collectibles here and here. It really gets rid of this too. So we don't have as many windows opened. But so now we're in the collectibles category. This is all that sold, 609. So it's eliminated 90 or so if we just do that. It eliminates all the health and beauty, the home and garden, the business, and it kind of helps us narrow it down a little bit here. And again, we're now down to, you know, it's right about 50% still sold, so still a good area to look at. And if I have a bottle, I'm just going to sit down here and scan until I find a similar one. Now, with something like this, you're probably not going to see an identical bottle of anything. They're very rare in some of these bottles. Like this one here, you probably won't see another one of these up. This one here, you probably wouldn't see one up with this toning and the coloring on it. So, I mean, a lot of these items are very specific. A lot of them may even look the same. Some of them may be the same, but they may be like didn't sell the first time, like this one here. This one looks like it didn't sell and then he relisted it, or he could have a couple of the same ones. It's just hard to say. It really looks like the same bottle. So that's kind of something you got to take into account. Is this multiples of the same bottle? Is every bottle going to sell at that price? If you've got a bunch of them and you're thinking you're going to make a ton of money, are you going to want to list them all together? How did this person list them? That's a lot of the information you need to look into to try and get a price on something like a bottle or really anything. The oddball ones obviously sell of any kind of thing. But I kind of look through the prices here on the sold ones. I'll look through the prices on the overall ones and kind of see where they go. Like here, you see this person has relisted it for $800, $800, $800. Let's see if we can find it selling anywhere in here. That actually looks like it's too high no matter what. Let's go back up to the top. Is this the same one here? This is $800 one. No. So he hasn't sold it. So that would probably be way out of range for that. This one here actually looks like it's probably an earlier, and he's actually done some more research. His description sounds much better than this one. Yeah, this one sounds, his description here on this one's bad. So who knows? He could have possibly gotten 800 for it if it was in better description on this. You're going to have to play around with, you know, finding the best way of describing any kind of item you have. So that's just something to think about too. But like depending on what you have, this is how I'm going to do the research on it. If I can't find the exact item or something similar, like just a typical bottle like this. This is obviously named, so that may not be a great example. But here's one. This one, this is a mallet one. It's called a mallet one because it kind of resembles the old wooden mallets of the day. And he's got a location where it's found. That doesn't mean anything. That might help sell it though, but it doesn't really honestly mean anything. So if you've got something that looks like this and you know black glass, obviously you can kind of get a judge that it's in the $200 to $300 range just by scanning through here. Let's use that mallet one as an example here. Here's the mallet one. Let's kind of give another one. Here's 281. This is similar in mallet. He's got the mallet in the title. But again, these are mallet ones. They're all in the same price range. So we're just going to pick mallet. Just give us a good example. Let's look down farther and see how many more of the mallet designs there are. You have to know the difference too. This would not be a mallet. This is actually a octagonal bottle. It's like a flask-style gin bottle. So that's not comparable either. We may not run into too many more mallet ones, actually. They're fairly scarce. I've got a few in my personal collection. This one could be construed as that slightly, depending on who listed it. But I don't see many other mallet ones on here. I'm not going to search just for mallet because we're just kind of getting an overall general idea. Let's see here. I do not see any other mallet ones. So we can concur. Well, here's a mallet one right here. The gentleman doesn't have, well, yeah, he does have it in there, I guess. But again, so this is a small end one. His picture's terrible. And I say it's terrible because it's got a dark background and you can't see the color of the light, the color of the reflection of the bottle through it like this one here. You can see the green in this one here. You can see the green below it. He would have sold it better with a better photo. That's a bad thing. And then plus he's way out on the photo. He doesn't have a zoom in where you can really see the bottle. That really killed his sale in my opinion there. That's probably going to be one of the lowest mallet ones on here. I'll bet you $1 million. These are all newer. These are not considered the same thing. And those are wine style flasks. Let's see here. Well, that's really about it. So if you had the mallet one, you're looking at $200 to $300 is the price range, and I'd always put it at the top of that $300. Let's just look up something more common for those of you who are now looking for postcards. Let's do postcard. Let's do Detroit, and let's just literally put that in there. And we're going to copy and paste this and do the same search here on sold ones too as soon as it gives me the opportunity. And we'll do the same thing over here. We're already in the collectibles, so that helps us out a minute here too. Okay, and on postcards, you're going to be looking for, let's say Detroit, here's a perfect example. 2,654 sold, and let's see how many were up. You've got 13,748 are up. So right off the bat, it's a very slow mover. Now, any big city, you're going to have this issue with. When you're looking for something to buy on postcards, look for the cities you've never heard of. I know for some people, there's tons of places. I've traveled the country as a regional and worked all over the country, from Boston all the way to Whittier, California, and every stop in between. As a regional, I used to fly a lot. So I've heard of a lot of small towns. We've done travels, driven around, and I've driven from, down in Key West all the way up to the Canadian border, and from, the Ohio area all the way to California too. So I've seen a lot of small towns. You don't want big towns for the most part. Now this is a little different. You've got, again, I've talked to another subscriber. Tattoos do sell. That is one area that always sells. Doesn't matter to the city, but take Detroit out of that. You're just talking about tattoos. So this card I won't count as a Detroit card. Famous people again. Here's Ty Cobb, $1,787. Ty Cobb, it's selling because it's a player. It's very famous. That, again, it's not a Detroit card as far as I'm concerned. Detroit Tigers, again, these are sports related. You're not going to run into these very often. These are something that you're just not going to see. I've never had a Detroit Tigers card ever, and I live near Detroit. And again, it's a Ty Cobb one, so that's the difference. And again, it's not always going to be Michigan. I'm just looking for Michigan, so and I'm not going to narrow it down from where I'm at right now, because people put Michigan cards in areas that they wouldn't necessarily sell better in, just because of lack of research. And you can see here, like Detroit again, there's so few that have sold in high dollar, so Detroit's not a huge mover. So overall, if you run into Detroit cards, are you going to really want to buy a Detroit card? No, not overall. You're not going to run into, a ton of high-value Detroit, Michigan cards. It's just not going to happen. Let's narrow this down again. This one here doesn't have postcards, so let's narrow this one down here on the solds. And let's narrow it down a little further. Let's try and get some of the wacky stuff out of there, and let's just center in on Detroit a little closer now. This is stuff that I would do too. I'm just going to sit here and look broadly and then narrow it in. And again, once you've done this a lot, you're just going to avoid these things. You're going to see off the bat that, look, I'm not even going to mess with Detroit cards. I'm sure we're going to find some that sold fairly decent in here, but for the most part, I wouldn't mess with them. Going down and breaking it down into just Michigan cards, again, we may be losing some other opportunities on pricing when you do this. So you've got to take that into account. But there's just too many to look through in the postcard section to even worry about looking through Detroit just in collectibles, or Michigan, cards in collectibles. We narrow it down. We got 5,763 now that have completed, versus 1,207 that's sold. So, it's a big difference. So you've got, 1 in 5.5 maybe sell, so that's not a huge greater deal. And again, stuff like this I usually just throw on out. I don't consider that. Wyandotte, Michigan, this isn't even really Detroit. I'm not sure. They must have Detroit in the description. Let's see here. Here's an early one. This is a different story. This is one on aluminum. So again, you can't count that. Any postcard on aluminum is going to sell. I've had them. I sell them. They always go for good money. Any of those aluminum cards sell. So that's, again, I'm not going to consider that as a price. So you've got very few. We're down to only $53 from a Detroit, Michigan scene. And that's it. And that's a real picture postcard, which usually sell higher than everything else. So again, don't mess with certain cities. You're going to have to know. The ones that you want are ones that are from really small, dinky towns. We'll do a search. Here's another thing we can search for. Now, if it's a real picture postcard, which I sell more of than anything else in the postcard category, it's an easy research. Just literally type in RPPC. We're going to go out to the main postcard section, and we'll look from this point here. Here's a crazy price. This person's never going to sell that. Here's the one that one of the other members of my Facebook group talked about. Lake Tahoe area, Eagle Rock. Now, I don't know what's the deal on this one here, but this 50 Eagle Rock Resort, I've seen it sell before, the same place. I've never seen one sell for this high. That is a monster, incredible price for a postcard. It even beat out Ty Cobb. But it just depends on what you're looking for and what type of item you're looking at. On things like this, the rarer the item, the better it is. Now, on something even too like these, maybe I could have done better on the card I sold for $450 on an auction. That's a chance you take on some of these. You could sell it for less, so you really have to judge on the aspect of what you expect to get out of it. This one here is Jim Thorpe, so, as a famous sports hero, who knows what that would go for. Again, with the Tahoe one, Placerville is what you look for. In this Eagle Rock Resort, I don't know what the deal is about that, but that always sells. This, again, is Ty Cobb, so you already have the knowledge that those probably should sell as an auction and let them set the price for you. In this one here, we were talking with another subscriber, as I said, about postcards. Some of these hand-colored ones that are real photo postcards sell because of the location, not because they're hand-colored. Hong Kong cards sell that are real photos all the time. China cards in general sell. Another Hong Kong right below it. I've had these similar ones myself. I will probably show you a close-ups on some photos in a photo info video I'm working on now too, where you can find street scenes like this. And I'm going to tell you, where to find these at. It's a bolo in my book, but I'll discuss that in another video. There are some good sources to find these that you can find outside of the source, outside of places you would think normally to look for. This one here, it's sold because it's the GAR. It just depends on the card itself. I can't tell you specifically for each item what to look for. I can only show you the features I use. And again, this is one of them. And what else you might want to do too, as I said, is let's go open another one and let's compare what's sold versus how many completed. So we're going to go here, click sold. We're going to do postcards. I'm going to copy or just type in, I guess at this point, since it's only a few letters, RPPC, and we're going to see how many actually sold overall. So 55,000 sold versus 201,000. So it's a 25% sell-through rate. Now, that may sound, wow, that's not great, but it is great if you know what to look for and you avoid the ones that don't sell. Again, big cities, big parks and stuff that there's a ton of them out there, they're not going to sell. You want the oddball ones, the ones that are taken by individuals that there only is a handful of them in existence. Things like that are what's going to sell it. And again, like my postcard that I sold for $450. It's in one of my what sold videos, so please take a look at it if you're not sure what I'm talking about. But that's, an oddball one even on its own, because even like a Jim Thorpe here only goes for $7.89. So, it just depends on what they are. This is a soda shop, soda works place, horse and buggies, good content. That's more like a occupational one than anything else. And depots, again, depots always sell. And you can see here, most of these are even California, what I'm looking at here, California, California, California. California cards in general are a bolo. We'll go up here, the highest price one in this category of real picture postcards, another California card. So that's what you're looking for is, California on top of everything else. But it's a give and take with your researching items. You're never going to find every single item a price for everything. It's just not going to happen. So, who knows? On some of these, when there is not another one available, I might put up like an auction and list it for $100 or something. So we're just going to have to judge on here. This is just a cave photo. How would I know what this card's listed? I wouldn't, honestly. I would just have to put a guesstimate on it. And honestly, I probably would have just listed this as a buy it now for $20 or $30. So again, who knows? I could have just messed up if I had that card. And it's just some oddball place. It's just an unknown entity in a card. Tahoe one, now this one I would have known the price. The baseball one I would have known the price. High. And stuff like that, I would look at other baseball cards, other baseball postcards and judge from that aspect of it. Again, this is an oddball one too. Greenwich Village, that kind of item does sell too. That's one of the exceptions of New York. And again, but this one here is from someone very specific, so it's selling from that aspect of it. Here's in Nevada, as I said. California and Nevada cards are probably the two top cards I look for, top states. Tattoo again there. Now, again, colleges and fraternities and things like that, that always sells. That's just a given too. Anything along that line does sell very well. So a college football game, a college sports game, anything along that line is going to sell. College events sell, especially from main state colleges. So those are easy to price. Camera float wagon, again, this would be an easy one to price too. I would expect this to be a high dollar. You're going to see other Kodak and Parade photos, and it does not have to be from the same city. So if I found a similar image from St. Petersburg, Florida, Detroit, Michigan, it might sell in the comparable range. That's what you got to determine. Let's see here. I hate seeing cards like this. You are going to run into them. They do sell. I'm not going to talk about the card. It's a terrible subject. I will not sell a card like that, but we'll just fan by that. You can look it up yourself if you're interested, but that's just not my area. They do sell high, but I won't buy them. I have a repulsion against some of those type of materials and images. It's just not my thing. Again, Tahoe cards, $500. Baseball card, $500. But this is a book, so we can't count that either. But real picture postcards are fairly easy to price. Depots always sell. You can always judge a depot by other depots. Baseball players. This is a weird, odd one again. This is Nevada, so I'm not even going to have to worry about that. All that kind of stuff you can price. Nevada and Tahoe cards you can judge. Suffragette, women's rights to vote, those are always high dollar. Placerville again, Tahoe. There you go. There it is. Another one. California again. Here is my card here. This one I sold. It's the 42nd highest my subscriber determined. I'm not going to call any names. I'm not sure how comfortable people are with calling out names and who helped me determine where we're at. Again, but these are all things you could research yourself too. So help is always great. Nevada again. As I said, Nevada again. The top cards, Nevada and California. Baseball as well too. But pricing stuff like that's easy. There's some nude ones. We will fast forward past that. They consider that art on eBay. I don't really report the ones that are vintage. If I see some really pornographic ones, obviously I do every time. I'll take the minutes out because sometimes my kids are here. I've got minors that work for us, so I don't like to see that on here. But again, researching postcards, you're really going to have to narrow it down to the city. And if you can't find the city that you're looking for, chances are you're going to put that one up at a fairly high price or list it as like a $39.99 auction starting bid. It's going to be hard to research some of these items. You just have to get the feel to be able to price something based on similar items. But for in Detroit example, it's such a small amount sold. So anything under in the 25% range is a low sell-through rate for a postcard. I try to get the postcard rates that are in the 75 range, at least 50% to 75% selling range. Those are the cities I'm going to look for. If I'm looking at a card and I'm wanting to know if I should buy it, if it's 25% or less are selling from that city and it's nothing fancy or special, doesn't have some good content, I will pass up the card. But depending on what cards you have, that's how you're going to judge this. It's kind of hard for me to tell you specifics on any given card. I've kind of showed you how I look through the cards in another video, but things you need to worry about is don't look for cards and don't mess your time researching cards in cities that just don't sell. Like if you picked up a stack of Detroit cards and you've looked up the first one and you see that hardly any are selling, you can quickly look through these cards and say let's only look up the ones that have super content, such as a downtown scene that's a real picture postcard, or a depot scene that's a real picture postcard, or a depot scene that's a linen or a chrome card. That's all you'd want to mess with from Detroit. Get rid of and not mess your time looking at any of the other ones from Detroit. Go for the higher dollar ones if your time is valuable and you don't want to mess with looking for a ton of items. Detroit, you see there are so many available from Detroit. You're just killing yourself if you're going to look that way for Detroit cards. So few did sell. And again, they're rare, scarce cards, and in this category they drop down in price very, very quickly. Obviously, there's some in here that aren't actually Detroit, Michigan. So let's narrow that back down again. Let's just cut it back down. And some cards, when there's not a ton of this many up, you're going to look for them just in the postcard category alone, without centering in on a specific city. But again, as there's more cards from Detroit, you're going to have to narrow it in to cut your search time down as best as possible. But again, some of these cards, this is a scarcity because this isn't really Detroit. So that one you don't count. And again, they drop down really quickly. This is an oddball street scene, so this one does sell. Probably one of a kind, as I said. But if you're pricing stuff from Detroit and you have no idea, you don't see the card up there, you're going to have to look at similar ones. Like here's a convention. Do you have a real picture convention card? And is that what you're looking for? If it's a real picture convention card, you can assume that this is going to be in a comparable price, even if it looks different. Worst case scenario, you put it up for 45 bucks to buy it now, and you take whatever, or you have it up for a couple months and you have to lower the price because you're too far off. Now, I've done this for 5 years now, so for me, I can judge on the cards. I've seen millions of cards probably in my time. I might look through 3,000-4,000 in one day, 3 or 4 different days a week possibly, depending on what I'm doing and how my week's going. So I've seen a lot of different cards and can judge the type of image you were looking for. So if you're out there and you're trying to find a price and you're trying to find what to look for, avoid the big cities. Pick out the small little dinky towns that are nothing. If the town's nothing now, that's really what you're going to want to look for. There's going to be more people wanting those small towns than anything else, so the prices are higher. There's more competition. The small towns are the ones you mess with. Don't bother looking up, like the Toledo example, the Detroit example. If you've got Detroit cards in your stack, you've picked up a stack of 100 postcards or whatever the case may be, eliminate all the Detroit and Toledo cards right off the bat. Unless it's a real picture postcard or something named to a very specific famous person, eliminate those from your search. Don't even search for those cards. Cards that show small town lifestyles that do not exist anymore. That's what you want. Don't mess your time researching again, like a Philadelphia card. I'm not going to look for a Philadelphia card. I wouldn't have bought a Philadelphia card. I wouldn't have bought a Boston card unless it's a very rare card. It's a real picture postcard of like a depot. And then even then, I'm going to research it. If you're in a mall and you're there for a little while and you want to learn this where you can make the bigger money and not mess with the returns and stuff and other items, you're going to have to sink some time into this. eBay is not easy. It is not a freebie for all that you're just going to make a ton of money. I earned the right to make what I do because I've researched for 5 years. I really say earned it because I worked hard to get to this point. I'm showing you some shortcuts here to help you along to get to that point. But you're going to have to take the time to do these researches. And if you get stumped on something, again, as I said, look at similar items from different states, even if you have to get a price range. If it's something, that's generally something you're going to see, like a depot card. Every city has a depot, or did at one point. So you can just type in depot. Let's just type in depot. Let's just do that. It's hard to explain every aspect of searching for something because there are so many different options to look for something. There are so many different things you could see, and each case could be different. We've got depot postcards. Let's narrow this down a little more. Let's go to completed or sold actually this time. And you saw how many of them there were. We're going to cut it down drastically in just a second here. Then we need to sort it by highest, obviously. So if you're pricing depots, depots are a different story. You can't always judge on the city on a depot, but depots in general, if you found a depot from some oddball city you've never heard of, you can kind of judge from the price of other depot cards. How rural is the town view? Is it a main town view? Chances are it's not going to be worth anywhere near as much as these small dinky towns. And again, something like this, like a depot, it does not 100% matter what city it's from. Obviously, you're going to get city collectors who just want those kind of things from the city, but people who collect railroad items collect depots, and they don't really care where it's from as much. They care that the image is hard to get. It shows something good with like a train, people waiting. Like this one here looks like it has a trolley and a train. So, that's what you want to do. Avoid the repos. Never worry about what a repo price is. But you can judge on a card like this, like some of these cards you see here, by similar typical cards from that area or from other ones. Like here's two from two different areas in the country, and they're both in the same price range. So, You know, and here's another one from another area, same ballpark price range. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be from that city or the same card to judge on your pricing. I've got a whole bunch in the 150 range of depots. So, you know, if I had a depot card, that's my ballpark. That's about where I'm going to start at. So that gives you a little better idea. I'm not sure what this guy's trying to do with these marks and stuff around it. I don't know if he thinks that makes it look better. No one cares about what's around the picture. Is it the same picture? No, I have no idea. He thinks he's promoting the item better that way. I don't think that's a good idea in my book at all. You're going to sell something like this quicker. I know I'm going off base here for a minute. If you show close-ups of the image. The ones that show close-ups, I always feel sell better. Let's zoom up here for just a second. Let's see what the top people did. He's just the postcard. Just the postcard. Just the postcard. Don't waste your time doing what that gentleman did. But again, this is how I price stuff like a depot. Obviously, depot cards show up very rarely. A depot, you might be the only copy of that depot up, so judge it by something else, other cards of depots from other cities. Don't worry that it's not from that city. Just like ports of call, if there's a specific ship in the harbor. Go by that ship, not by the harbor name itself. Worry about the ship. If it's like, let's say, a department store, Woolworths, and you've got a Detroit Woolworths card, look at other Woolworths department store cards and see how they sell. Chances are people might collect Woolworths buildings, and that's what's going to sell the card, not the city. So you've got to really determine on what part of the card is the part that you need to research. It doesn't always matter that it's from a specific city. The content itself seems to sell a card better than the city, so to speak. Now again, as I said, historical societies and people like to buy specific cards just from the city they live in, or cities they've grown up in, or city they were born in. So, you know, that does play into here. But when you can't find that specific card, judge it by similar ones from other cities if you have to. Like on the Real Picture postcards. The Real Picture postcards, there may be only one of that specific card ever made. You could buy a kit, a camera kit, and you would include the film in the back image, and you would take a picture of the town view or whatever you wanted, and you would develop that yourself, and that would be your Real Picture postcard. So you would be the only one that would have a copy of that. Now, you could take an actual photograph down to the photographic studio, and they could make you copies. They would take a photo of that photo and make copies of it. So some individual cards, there are more than one available. But for the most part, some of these cards are very scarce because of the limited quantity that were ever sold. And again, you've got to think that even if there were 1,000 of them printed of any given Real Picture postcard back then, how many survived? So, you know, you've got to judge by similar cards because of these factors. You want to look for stuff like that too. The town views that are oddball ones that may have been taken by just some individual. The Real Picture postcards that are signed by professional photographers sell better. But again, you're going to run into cards every day of the week that you can't find anything like it up for sale. One of a kinds. So judge similarly, Lies. If you've got a card from a specific street downtown and you can't find any cards from that street downtown, just literally type in the town name in downtown and only judge your prices on the cards that say downtown from that area or that show downtown scenes from that area. It doesn't have to be the same street. It doesn't have to be the same block. It doesn't have to be the same area. It has to have similar content. And again, if it's not a topic that you would think that would be like, it's not a depot or something that just sells because it's a depot, you're looking just for that town. And again, if you don't find something from that town that's for sale, that might mean that it's a really good card. You can start selling, you know, $57.50, $75 depending on the content. You can always lower the price. But once you put a price up there that's low, it's sometimes hard to increase that price if you find out later that it's worth money. For us, a lot of this is residual income, so I don't care if it sells right away, so I will hold on to it and let it ride at a higher price, and eventually we do get the higher price in a large majority of our items. You may not have the luxury and you want to turn and flip these cards so you can learn quicker. So judge them by similar cards. If you've got to put them up a little cheaper, but you're still making a good profit, let's say you got a $1 card, you put it up for $7.99, you sell it for $7.99, you just made after fees $6.50. So that's how this all works. So, you know, who cares if that's the profit margin? If you sell a shirt, a t-shirt that you pay $2.99 for and you only sell for $8, you're still coming way ahead buying the postcard at that rate too. So again, research is an exact science. I've done this so long, and that's how I can nail some prices on some items. I don't price everything right, and I do have to go back and change prices quite often sometimes. But that's the game we play. You put it high, trying to get the best you can, and you lower the price through time, or you lower it and raise it back up, switch the title, and relist it again. But that's just a real rough, quick judge on this. Tomorrow I have my What's Sold video coming out, and I am going to be doing live this week. I've got everything rolled. I did do a live test run. It did show up on YouTube. Fine, everything sounded good. It looked good. So this coming up Wednesday is my tentative date at 7 o'clock for a live video. So if you have questions, I've got some on a paper right now from some folks in my Facebook group. But if you have questions, please write them down and save them for that day, and you can ask me in person, and we can hopefully answer some of those for you. But again, Don, the Auction Professor, hopefully that gives you some ideas, some things to look for, and how to research some of these prices on items that you just can't seem to find. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button below, subscribe, and tell a friend. The only two categories most all antiques and collectibles are in are obviously the antiques or the collectibles section. But as I said, they could show up in either one.